Imagine that we drain the oceans, let the water recede, and reveal the secrets of the seafloor. We can do this. With the help of the latest underwater scanning technologies, we have the ability to turn precise data into three-dimensional images, which will help us study the deep oceans at an unprecedented level. We'll be able to see ancient sunken cities, crashed ships with treasures. We'll see the world's largest mountains. Underwater natural disasters. We'll find out what secrets the Bermuda Triangle hides. We'll look at the underwater infrastructure created by our civilization. We'll learn who lives on the ocean floor and much more. So, thanks to detailed sonar data and modern 3D modeling technologies, today we'll find out what can be seen on the ocean floor if we drain it. Despite the fact that we gathered today to examine the ocean floor, our story begins not in the ocean, but on the territory of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, where an amazing discovery was made. Karst sinkholes, also known as cenotes, formed as a result of erosion of soft limestone. Karst sinkholes can reach depths of hundreds of meters. Scientists discovered that many cenotes are connected by deep underground channels. But most interestingly, if you look at the location of karst sinkholes from above, you can see an unusual picture. The cenotes form a contour that resembles the outline of a gigantic crater. Most likely it appeared as a result of a meteorite of incredible size falling, and then karst sinkholes formed along the crater's borders. Today, millions of years after the meteorite impact, the impact site was hidden not only under the waters of the Gulf of Mexico, but also under a layer of sedimentary rocks that reach several hundred meters deep. And the only way to learn the age of this crater is to examine its rocks. A team from different countries began drilling through the ocean floor, when suddenly they discovered a layer of molten rock, evidence of a meteorite impact. Analysis showed that the crater's age is 66 million years. And what a coincidence! Nowhere in the world can we find dinosaur remains younger than 66 million years. The obtained scanning data helped create a three-dimensional model for the first time of the formed crater, which is now hidden deep underground and underwater. Thanks to this, we understand how one meteorite could destroy all dinosaurs on the planet. First, we need to drain the Gulf. And as the water recedes, it reveals the continental shelf, which stretches along the coastline. The relief of the Gulf floor is covered with a thick layer of sediments, and the crater is still hidden under thousands of meters of sedimentary rock. So we need to remove it. Removing layer by layer, we travel 66 million years into the past to find the heart of the crater, a place that no living creature has seen for 66 million years. The crater is striking in its size, reaching 200 kilometers in width and 1 kilometer in depth. As a result of the explosion, a ring of Earth's crust fragments formed around it. Now, thanks to studying the crater, with the latest technologies, it was possible to establish the size, speed, and angle of the meteorite's fall. Its width was more than 10 kilometers, and its speed reached more than 40,000 kilometers per hour. However, that's not all. At the crater site, there were 120,000 cubic kilometers of rock, which as a result of the explosion was thrown into the atmosphere, which became the beginning of a destructive chain of events. The impact made an incredible hole in the Earth, and all the crushed rock was thrown into the upper layers of the atmosphere. It orbited the planet, received an unimaginable amount of potential and gravitational energy, and fell back, heating the atmosphere like an oven and burning everything in its path. Practically all life within a radius of thousands of kilometers was destroyed by the explosion. However, those who were farther away also had a hard time. Giant waves crashed onto the coastline. They could reach heights of several hundred meters, or even a kilometer. When they hit the shore and rolled across the continent, surviving animals could hear the approaching tsunami, but couldn't see anything in the darkness. And it was dark for one simple reason: where the meteorite fell, there were rocks with high sulfur content. As a result of the impact, sulfur began to evaporate and rise high above the Earth. Sulfur reacted with atmospheric gases, which led to the formation of atmospheric sulfate aerosols, which don't let sunlight through. A deadly cloud hung over the Earth, and the planet began to cool. And everything could have been not so bad, if not for one thing. The asteroid fell at a very steep angle, about 60 degrees to the horizon. This is the most dangerous impact scenario, as it resulted in the maximum amount of dust entering the atmosphere. And if it had fallen to Earth at a 15-degree angle, the amount of ejected dust, carbon dioxide, and sulfur compounds would have been about 3 times less. And if it had fallen vertically, 10 times less. When studying the crater in detail, an explanation was discovered for how its shape made the sulfate clouds even more deadly. The northeastern border of the crater is open. Here the bottom went deeper, and water absorbed part of the impact. But 30 minutes later, water began to rush back rapidly. Water vapor formed as a result of the tsunami, mixed with sulfur, creating even more gases that don't let sunlight through. Marine plankton lost the ability to photosynthesize nutrients, and soon the foundation of the food chain was destroyed. Animals began to starve. The absence of sunlight meant that the average temperature on the planet dropped by 26 degrees Celsius for a long 16 years. Only the most resilient plants and animals survived. The dinosaurs died. Nevertheless, one question remains open. Was this catastrophe unique of its kind? The crater from the asteroid is not the only thing. We'll see if we drain the Gulf of Mexico. After all, today in this Gulf basin, there are more oil rigs than anywhere else on the planet. The fact is that this Gulf is considered one of the richest oil deposits on the planet, and all because 300 million years ago, there was an ancient swamp here. Now it's hidden deep, under layers of water and rock, as a result of high pressure and temperatures, all organic. Matter of this swamp turned into oil, and now a huge number of oil workers have flocked here. The scale of the built infrastructure can only be understood by removing all water from the Gulf. As the water recedes, we can see a branch network of pipes necessary for extracting oil from the deepest wells. Oil pipelines stretch for hundreds of kilometers along the seabed. It's hard to believe, but on the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico, 70,000 kilometers of pipes are laid. But we continue to remove water from this Gulf, and soon before our eyes appear small ships of merchants, sunk several hundred years ago due to severe storms. But this is all small fry. The big game awaits us ahead as we continue draining the Gulf. Before us appears a perfectly preserved steamship from World War II times Robert E. Lee. It was sunk by a German submarine. The last moments of float of this ship become clear. The bridge broke, unable to withstand water pressure, when the vessel began to sink. The gun, loaded with ammunition, stands in neutral position. This shows that the attack was quick and unexpected. 2 lifeboats lie next to the ship. This means the ship went down so quickly that the crew didn't have a chance to lower them into the water. Scientists calculated that Robert E. Lee sank in 3 minutes. Many people lost their lives. But don't worry, if we continue draining the Gulf of Mexico, we'll see that justice exists in this world like some kind of karma. From the darkest depths of the Gulf comes one of the most striking finds. Submarine U-166. The very one that sank the ship Robert E. Lee. But why did the submarine also sink? The fact is that the steamship Robert E. Lee wasn't traveling alone. It was accompanied at a distance by an anti-submarine ship, Patrol Craft 566, and the submarine crew didn't know this. So while the submarine was watching through the periscope, the sinking ship, it was suddenly attacked by the anti-submarine ship. When its sonar detected it, it was already too late. The submarine didn't have time to dive deep enough. Very quickly, the hunter became the prey. 2 depth charges were launched at the submarine and it went to the bottom. 22 people died on the steamship, and all 52 crew members on the submarine. But since we've started looking at ships on the drained ocean floor, we first want to look at the Titanic. However, the Titanic is just the most publicized story of shipwreck, but far from the most tragic. For example, if we remove water from Chinese seas, then 200 kilometers south of Japan, we'll discover the once top-secret battleship Yamato, the largest in all history. 263 meters long, almost 40 wide. It was considered unsinkable, as it had 40-centimeter thick armor. It was Japan's pride. But still the ship sank along with 363 people. That's twice as many as on the Titanic. As we can see, the battleship is completely torn to pieces. Who could do this to such an armored machine? The answer is itself. The discovered wreckage of the world's largest battleship revealed dramatic details of its final hours. Around the wreckage are scattered hundreds of shells from Yamato's own artillery. This is because it was fighting off raids by many enemy aircraft. They dealt serious damage to the battleship and it began to list to one side. But something's not right here. The fact is that its 40-centimeter armor is crushed like foil, and the huge hull is torn in half. This couldn't be done by any bomb or torpedo. What happened? The key to solving this was found in these rare footage. We see how the British battleship HMS Barham hit by a torpedo during World War II, and listing to one side. When it began to overturn, shells began falling from the deck into the ship's interior. As a result of the explosion, 800 people died. From Yamato's wreckage, it's clear that it met the same fate. The explosion that tore the battleship apart occurred right at the ammunition storage location. Now it's time to drain the legendary Bermuda Triangle, in the territory of which mysteriously supposedly more ships sink than in other parts of the ocean, which is, of course, far-fetched, but nevertheless. We can look into the depths of the Bermuda Triangle thanks to data collected using sonar scanning technology. Finally, we'll see how everything is arranged there if we remove the ocean. Without water, Bermuda's small islands seem to be on top of a mountain, about 4 kilometers high, alone in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Where did this mountain come from? Of course, as a result of a major volcanic eruption. This happened in the early stages of the Atlantic Ocean formation. The volcano grew for millions of years, and eventually solidified as a huge tower above the water surface. As a result, a huge volcanic island formed, which was 1,200 meters above modern sea level. After the volcano solidified 30 million years ago, wind and rain eroded the mountain and formed a flat plateau. After the Ice Age, the water level rose, and the Bermuda Islands remained on top of the underwater mountain. Nowadays, on the steep slopes of the ancient volcano, reefs formed that surround most of the Bermuda Islands, and it's on them that many ships have crashed. But this happens in other parts of the ocean too, near other islands surrounded by reefs. Besides, this is just one small corner of the huge Bermuda Triangle. Therefore, there's no convincing evidence that more ships sink in Bermuda than in other parts of the ocean. Nevertheless, finding a sunken ship in some areas of the triangle is really difficult. And draining this area around Bermuda, we saw a depression 8 kilometers deep. This is the Puerto Rico Trench, the deepest point of the Bermuda Triangle and the entire Atlantic Ocean. In some valleys and crevices, you can see sheer cliffs several kilometers high. Truly impressive scenery. On the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, the trench formed as a result of the edge of the North American tectonic plate moving toward the Caribbean plate and sliding under it. Looking at the size of this trench and its depth, we understand why many ships lost in the Bermuda Triangle still haven't been found. Such places and underwater mountain regions are the most difficult areas for searching for missing transport. For example, in 2014, the Malaysian airliner Boeing 777 that crashed in the ocean, for which they organized the largest search operation in history, was never found. Because if we drain the area where it presumably now lies, we'll see a huge mountain chain there. But even if we could actually drain the ocean in real life, it's far from certain that we'd manage to find the plane. After all, it's happened many times that we've managed not to find crashed planes in our ordinary mountains that are on land. And if we can't even find anyone in such mountains, then what can we say about searches in underwater mountains at a depth of 4 kilometers? And I'll remind you that the Puerto Rico Trench in the Bermuda Triangle is at a depth of 8 kilometers. There it's generally impossibly difficult to search for sunken ships. Nevertheless, although I said that there's no evidence that more ships sink in Bermuda than in other parts of the ocean, relative to the number of ships passing by, there are still places on our planet where really too many ships sink. For example, in the English Channel, there are generally thousands of sunken ships here. To understand why this happens, we need to look at the ocean floor. Combining echolocation data and visualization technology, we drain the English Channel. Water recedes, revealing to scientists the first secret, the bottom relief. Before them is an amazing world hidden from view. Kilometers of moving dunes, a real underwater desert. These are the Goodwin Sands. They rise close to the surface, constantly move and pose a deadly danger to ships. A real graveyard, where about 2,000 vessels have crashed. Each was trapped and ran aground. Many of them were merchant ships, and therefore some had treasures on board. And now many treasure hunters dive into these waters in search of valuables. If we start draining Chinese seas, pumping water out of them, then not far from the coast, we'll discover scattered everywhere wreckage of ships from different eras. The Bermuda Triangle never dreamed of such a thing. Why did this stretch of water become one of the most dangerous in history? And what treasures were buried on the seabed? Draining the ocean around the Chang Islands and removing layers of sand and mud. Before our eyes appears an amazing picture. Chinese ceramic products from the 15th century. Cups, bowls, and plates, even after 600 years, lie neatly in rows. Each cup costs hundreds of dollars, and around the dishes were scattered 30 sunken ships. They sank at different times over the last 2,000 years. If we continue draining the ocean around the Chang Islands, an even more exciting spectacle appears. Sunken vessels from around the world. Spanish galleon, Chinese sampan, Arab dhow. So many ships sank here for exactly 2 reasons. First, the maritime Silk Road passed through this place. And second, there was a ship parking area here, a harbor. And most accidents happen precisely when entering a harbor, or leaving it. A sudden wind change in a crowded harbor can lead to a ship being carried onto coastal rocks. Merchants loaded with porcelain and silk came here hoping to get rich, but instead gave their lives in these overcrowded and restless harbors. Today, not only trade routes for ships pass through the ocean, but also trade routes of a new type, and data is transferred through water. What was once the maritime Silk Road is now an information superhighway. However, the modern trade route is full of no fewer dangers. Many deep-sea cables are woven into the World Wide Web. Our love for the internet is boundless. Today, humanity consumes several petabytes of information every 60 seconds, and the overwhelming majority of this data is transmitted under the ocean. If we drain it worldwide, we'll see a network 1.5 million kilometers long, forming the World Wide Web. Information is transmitted along the seabed at the speed of light, through a distributed cable system. A full 98% of the world's information passes through fiber optic cables on the ocean floor. One of the most important and busy sections of the global network passes under Chinese seas, through the Luzon Strait between Taiwan and the Philippines. Like all trade routes, this information highway is subject to various dangers, from attacks by dangerous predators that bite through wires, to collisions with even larger creatures. These shots show how a humpback whale got tangled in cables near the Norwegian coast. Rescuers managed to free the animal, but they had to cut the cables, leaving part of Scandinavia without internet. To eliminate possible threats, engineers bury the wires deep under the seabed. If we drain the ocean, we'll see giant machines that lay the World Wide Web. They resemble a plow the size of a house that crawls along the seabed. High-pressure water jets form trenches, 3 meters deep, in which the cable is buried, only in the deepest parts of the ocean, which neither anchors nor whales can reach. Are wires laid on the bottom surface? If we drain the deepest gorges in the Luzon Strait, the main information highway appears, connecting Asian and Western countries. 19 cables through which 3 trillion gigabytes of data are transmitted between companies, governments, universities, and exchanges. They all lie on the surface and are therefore vulnerable. In 2006, a powerful tremor occurred in Chinese seas. This was an earthquake of magnitude 7.1 in the deep gorge of the Luzon Strait. The second stage of the earthquake began. A huge underwater landslide that mercilessly began destroying information cables lying on the bottom. The flow swept away all wires connecting Southeast Asia and the USA. The internet went down, and within minutes, this affected the wallets of millions of people. ATMs stopped working, stock exchanges stopped operating, and deals worth billions of dollars were blocked. Corporations and banks were paralyzed on both sides of the ocean. This was the first case when so many cables broke simultaneously, and a huge part of the world completely lost internet access. It took 3 months to restore the broken wires, and the next catastrophe could break out at any moment, because deep on the bottom of the Pacific Ocean hides a tectonic monster, the largest and most dangerous seismic zone on the planet, the Ring of Fire. 90% of all earthquakes on the planet occur right here, and their consequences turn into catastrophes. The main distinguishing feature of the Ring of Fire is that tremors here shake not only the earth, but also the seabed, which leads to a sharp rise in water. with deadly tsunamis destroying everything in their path. At the center of our planet is a molten core, surrounded by a dense mantle of various rocks. The Earth's crust consists of several tectonic plates, in constant motion. At the junction of plates, mountains rise and oceanic trenches gape, gorges so deep that 6 skyscrapers would fit in them, one on top of another. One plate pushes another deep into the planet, where plates don't yield to each other. Colossal pressure accumulates. Only in such areas can earthquakes of magnitude 9 and higher occur. Scientists call this tectonic fracture of the Earth's crust a subduction zone. Subduction zones are underwater, so they cause not only earthquakes, but also huge tsunamis. Earthquakes in the ocean led to many cities on our planet going underwater. Now, with the help of underwater scanning, we can look at what remains of them. Classical civilizations in the Mediterranean flourished for more than 1,000 years. Today, throughout the coast, people tell stories of sunken cities. Water surrounding Greece recedes and before us opens something unprecedented. The foundation of an ancient city appears on the seabed. The city is called Pavlopetri, and it was discovered by just one archaeologist in 1967. This city is 5,000 years old. Various household items were found on the bottom. With the help of underwater scanning, we can recreate the city's appearance. Without water, we see the outline of the city's foundation, as clear as day. This is how it looked at the peak of its prosperity. A perfect example of a new type of European city, built of stone with straight streets. Pavlopetri was located at the intersection of many trade routes in the Mediterranean, actively developing. During the Bronze Age, objects found in these ruins indicate that Pavlopetri was a major port city and excellent trading and craft center. What led to its demise? How did it end up on the seabed? Interestingly, there are no historical records of its destruction. It sank and disappeared into oblivion until its discovery in the 20th century. Nothing was known about the city. A three-dimensional model of the bottom helps reveal its disappearance. At the city's edge, we see 3 mysterious lines. These are strips of coastal rock formed by the action of sunlight and salt water. Such formations only occur at the coastline. This can only mean one thing. The shore sank underwater due to earthquakes. 3 earthquakes in a row that completely submerged the city underwater. Pavlopetri is one of the most important discovered Bronze Age cities, and the oldest of the world's sunken cities. But scientists are sure it's not the only one. And we have yet to find many more sunken settlements, hiding in the ocean depths. Maybe we'll even stumble upon the legendary Atlantis. We may not find Atlantis, but we have discovered something mysterious. In the sea near Yonaguni Island, in 1986, a massive underwater formation was discovered. That made a lot of noise in the media. Could it be the creation of an ancient advanced civilization? This is an amazing site, a huge structure, whose smooth walls lead to a summit. Located at the height of an 8-story building, stone steps rise from the very bottom. From whichever side you look, the views are stunning. Some consider this to be entirely human-made. Others think it's a natural monument that was modified by humans. If we pump water from the shores of Yonaguni Island and expose the monument thanks to data obtained from underwater scanning, we can better understand the nature of this stone formation. Water recedes and we see exposed, smoothly carved terraces. The monument appears before us in its entirety. And now we see how huge it is. Its scale is striking. Nevertheless, out of water, it no longer looks as artificial. That is man-made, as it seemed underwater. Many scientists are convinced that this monument has a completely natural origin, despite its regular shape. Because we know perfectly well that nature often creates various creations of regular form. For example, if we pump water from a quiet bay of one of the eastern Mediterranean islands, we'll see unusual round stones of too regular a shape. When they were discovered, they caused a stir in the archaeological world, exciting scientists. Many researchers immediately considered them human creations, and the place where they were found was considered ruins of an ancient city. Stones of similar shapes were found in excavations of an ancient settlement over 2,000 years old. They served as bases for stone columns, so scientists thought that these underwater stones were also created for similar purposes, and this place was the ruins of an ancient city. But there's one but. Analysis showed that these stones are already 5 million years old. Naturally, no civilization could exist then, to create them. But then how to explain the appearance of these stones? It's simple. Further examination revealed the truth. Namely, that they were created by nature. From under the seabed comes methane emissions. Together with microorganisms and bottom sediments, they make the rock take regular rounded shapes. These formations don't belong to ancient Greek culture. They're 5 million years older than all humanity. Draining the ocean helps us understand what lies on its bottom. However, this won't help us learn how life flows in it. We can't do without water here. So now we'll leave it in the ocean. Descend to the very bottom, where the carcass of a huge sperm whale has fallen. But don't think it will just rot here. Nothing goes to waste on the ocean floor. Soon everyone will notice this carcass. Six-gill sharks have exceptional smell. Only 25 minutes have passed, and a six-gill shark has already found the sperm whale carcass that appeared. Each bite by a shark spills some blood into the water. Thanks to this, news spreads quickly, and other owners of sharp smell quickly swim to the feeding site. After 12 hours, 7 huge sharks are pushing each other, trying to tear off pieces of meat. No one is ready to retreat. They attack each other and try to bite. This continues for the next 12 hours. A day after the whales fall, 1/3 of the carcass is already eaten. And remarkably, the first shark to arrive is still eating until it's full to satiation. One such meal can last a whole year. After the sharks have satisfied their thirst for flesh and swum away, the thorough cleanup crew begins to arrive. Huge crabs, sea spiders carrying coral in their back legs, presumably as rear protection. Here are also stone crabs. Perhaps they notice the carcass almost as quickly as the sharks, but they can't move at the same speed. A month has passed and more than 30 species of scavengers are destroying the last edible pieces. But now these scavengers attract their own hunters. Lancet fish or saberfish, usually swimming vertically, pick off crabs one by one. Several sperm whale teeth have fallen out as the skeleton begins to decompose. After 4 months, nothing remains except a few bones. But even they are suitable as food. For some, these are so-called zombie worms. They drill passages in bones, inject acid there, thus getting to pieces of fat that still remain inside the bones. Decades may pass, but eventually the last bones will decompose, and the entire 30-ton carcass will be processed. A whale fall is a temporary oasis in the desert of the uneven ocean floor. As was already said today, in some places giant faults stretch for many kilometers along the ocean floor. This is a canyon that goes to the center of the earth. Before you is the deepest of all, almost 11 kilometers, the Mariana Trench in the Pacific Ocean. Even Everest could hide in this trench. Scientists used to think that nothing could survive down here in these deep gorges, but even here there is life. A special type of sea slug. These and other simple creatures manage to survive on the tiny amount of food that gets here. And like the sea star, they withstand the pressure of 50 airliners, stacked on top of each other. A controlled probe camera shows the most unusual discovery of all. This is a transparent snailfish. At a depth of 8 kilometers, this is the deepest fish discovered by science in our time. No one could even imagine that such a complex organism as a fish could exist under such enormous pressure. And as we see, from great depths to the very upper boundary of the twilight zone, everywhere in the deep sea there is life in one form or another. And now we assume that the deep sea may be the place where life on Earth originated. Right here, in a world hidden by the greatest geological object on Earth, runs right through the middle of the world ocean. An underwater mountain range encompassing the entire globe, the mid-ocean ridge. In the southern Pacific Ocean, the seafloor is splitting. About 80% of all volcanic activity on the planet occurs on the ocean floor, and almost all of it goes along the mid-ocean ridge. But from this titanic force also appear great ridges that feed the ocean. Through the faults erupt gases and hot springs, containing enormous amounts of minerals, which condense from these jets and form large chimneys, hydrothermal vents. This 30-meter high one is called Godzilla. Now we know there's as much life here as in tropical jungles, in places up to 500,000. Various small animals fit on 1 square meter. Their diet consists entirely of bacteria, which in turn feed on chemicals created by volcanoes. Crabs consume bacterial film that covers their shells. Others carry bacterial cultures in their gills. Shrimp carry such cultures in their oral cavity, but this strategy is limited by danger. As to provide nutrition for these microbes, shrimp must rush into hot springs, where they risk being boiled alive. Over the past decades, the number of discovered hydrothermal vents has doubled. Each has its own animal community, but the most important hydrothermal vent is in the Atlantic Ocean. It was called the Lost City. Inside 60-meter towers, something truly extraordinary happens. Under great pressure and super high temperatures, hydrocarbons spontaneously form, molecules that are the main component of all living beings. That is, this is the main building material for creating life. And now many scientists believe that life on Earth could have originated around such a source about 4 billion years ago. Now we know that Jupiter's and Saturn's moons have deep seas, and if life can exist under such extreme conditions as on the bottom of our ocean, near hydrothermal vents, then certainly it can exist somewhere out there too, under kilometer-thick layers of ice on the bottom near similar hydrothermal vents. That's all. Leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you and see you in the next videos. Take care.